Welcome to Untethered to Rooted, a podcast that brings you a collection of stories around grief, healing, and identity. Hear from everyday people how grief and loss shape their identity and how their identity shapes the way they heal and process grief. I'm your host, Daugherty, a licensed psychotherapist with extensive experience dealing with grief, both personally and professionally. And if you want to hear stories with gems and practical tools for healing, stay tuned for more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Untethered to Rooted. Today, we'll be exploring grief as it relates to being a child of a parent who currently struggles with addiction. According to the 2023 United States National Survey on Drug Use and Health, 48.5 million, that's 16.7% of Americans aged 12 years old and older battled a substance use disorder in the past year. And 10.2% of Americans 12 years and older had an alcohol use disorder in the past year. So that's so many people. And so for many of us, we either know someone personally or we know of someone who has struggled with addiction issues. Our guest today, Averry Cox, grew up with a mother who struggled and still struggles with alcohol dependence, or what we commonly know as alcohol abuse. And with several conversations and uncovering family patterns, Averry discovered much of this stemmed from sexual abuse that was ever present in her family. Averry is a biracial neurodivergent therapist for couples and individuals. She's a writer and an author, and her first book is titled The Incurable Longing, and her second book, titled Remnants and Reflections, is coming out this year, 2025. And you can follow Averry on Instagram at Averry Cox Counseling on IG, and that's 2 R's for Averry.
2 R's, yeah, so, I was going to clarify because it's got to be special.
Yeah, exactly. So, welcome, Averry. I'd love for you, obviously, aside from reading your bio, I'd love for you to just share more about yourself. I usually like to have my guests socially locate themselves with some important identities and just tell us about you. So, what are some identities that are important to you?
Yes, I am biracial. I'm black and white. I am ADHD, so autistic and ADHD. I am a mother. I consider myself an educator. I am a therapist, like you said, a writer, like you said, a first-generation college student, music lover, and I put it into words, but like encourager and inviter. Like I like to consider myself, you know, if I'm going out dancing or something, I'm the person that's like, I can tell you what to dance. Come dance. Like, you know? And that's me, like, all the time.
Love
like,
that.
Yeah. Inviting people to talk about stuff.
I love that. That's great. And so, well, I will invite you to talk about whatever you'd like today related to this. And I know specifically this is grief when your parent struggles with alcohol dependence. You know, you describe in your book, Remnants and Reflections, this quote, "A parent with addiction means grieving and experiencing a very slow abandonment. Every day you watch your parent choose their vice over you, their health, and a possible long-lasting future together. You are robbed daily from a present and loving parent without acknowledgement and in opposition to your requests and pleas. They are choosing short-term escape and eventual death over you." Wow.
Wow was right. That, like, I can always write stuff. Wow. Obviously, it's not funny. I can, like, write stuff, but then when I hear it, it feels more real. Like, I'm like, that's really sad reality. But it is a sad reality. Yeah. So that is how I describe it in my book.
Tell me more. I mean, you said you're robbed daily. What is your connection to this topic? How is grief relevant? What are you robbed of?
Yeah, depending on like the level of addiction. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as functional alcoholics until I was an adult. Like, because my experience with alcoholism was a person who, I mean, they're not functioning in literally any sense of the word. Like, so inebriated, she's either sleeping all the time or she's like stumbling through the house. She's like very, like, lost. Like, she's not with you, you know? So to hear that people had experiences with a parent who still made it to work, or like they're drinking on the job or something, but they're working and they're making money. Like my mother did not ever do that. She was not there, like physically there, but like, have you heard about the Reese monkeys study? You know about that?
No, tell me about it. I actually don't
Okay,
know.
so with the Reese monkeys, they did a study. So they have a mom monkey that is just wires, but they have like bottles, so essentially like the monkeys can still eat. And then they have a mother that is cloth. They don't move or anything, but it's just like a wire but coated in cloth. And the monkeys chose the mom that is cloth and soft and like comfortable overeating, and that's how they died. Because
Wow.
essentially it's like nurturance over food. But in my case, it's neither. Like, she's not present to offer warmth, and she's also not present to like feed me. So what am I robbed of? Everything. There's not a mom who is like caring, or what you see in the movies, and she's just incoherent. Like, yeah, it's really hard to describe, like the stumbling and the absent, like there's nobody home, but she looks like lost and like frightened. But when she's not like that, I write about all this in my second book. It's a lot around neurodivergence. It's a lot around my memories as a child and like the implications of these things. But when she wasn't that, where she's stumbling and messy and emotional, then she's like super fun. Like fun. So she's like throwing parties, and she like wants to be silly. She's like always playful, playing a lot of card games, making jokes out of stuff. So the way that I described in my book is like Jekyll and Hyde. Except for not except for, because I think also in Jekyll Hyde, not that I ever read it, but that there is no acknowledgement of this part. So if I ever mentioned her being drunk the day before, or showed her pictures or whatever, she would get very angry and irritable, like, don't show me that, or why would I want to see that? She's just mean. But she's like creating this negativity to then be playful about later. So she's not acknowledging that the reason why we're in whatever predicament we happen to be in, whether we like are waking up somewhere, we have to find our way somewhere, get our way out of homelessness, whatever, she is then playful and like, let's not think about how hard this is, and let me be like the mom who distracts the kid from how hard things are, however, with no acknowledgement that she is creating the hardships herself. Not that, of course there are some things that systemic, whatever, but it's just a very confusing upbringing. And then again, being autistic, if you know a lot about autism or if you don't, we like to tell the truth and be frank and be upfront about things, being honest. It just makes sense. We want to say things how they are. But I didn't know I was autistic as a kid. However, like, I was not allowed to tell the truth about things, and that was very confusing, because also as an autistic person, eventually we learn that like we aren't doing things the right way, and so we have to rely on social narratives or what people tell us to do, essentially. So growing up being gaslit, being like, in my body this feels wrong, or this is annoying, or this is frustrating, or this hurts, and then having a mom scold you or reprimand you when you told people what was going on, it was very confusing.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
that is like,
well, I didn't, because I don't know what's bad or not to say. I'm just like, I'm just speaking facts. So why am I getting in trouble for being honest? Is it because I'm being honest? So then I'm trying to make sense of things, but there's no conversation to be had about why I'm not allowed to do it. It's just, don't do that. So I've said a lot. I'll let you try That's
No,
okay.
there is a lot, but I think that the word that you were mentioning a lot, and actually the word that kept coming up for me was like how confusing a childhood to have when you're not really sure what is typical necessarily of interactions with a parent. And so like one question I had was just like how did you know as a kid what your experience was? Like, was your experience typical of that mother child like relationship? Or like how did you know that something was
Amiss.
that alcohol was a yeah, like something was amiss or that alcohol was like the reason for this? Like were you putting these pieces together as a child, or as a child was it like just experiencing your mom as she's fun one moment and then she's like really kind of confusing and disorganized at other moments? Like, what was that like for you as a kid?
I knew very early on that it was related to alcohol because you're witnessing someone change, and then I don't know if it's because I'm autistic. I don't know. I'm blessed to be autistic in this sense because like another question people have is like, why didn't you turn out like that or something? But it just never made sense to me. Logically, it does not make sense to ingest something to try to solve my problem, and it removes me from being there's just so many things that I'm like, that doesn't make sense, and the way you guys communicate doesn't make sense, and like the dynamics of this family don't make sense, so I'm not going to do it. And that's not me minimizing addiction, because I understand that there are obviously like genetic components. But yeah, how did I know? I think I just really put two and two together of like, you're always with this substance, you're forever changing when you do it, you're mean if you don't get it, and then you become like hyper aware and hyper vigilant. How much has she had? Maybe I should like hide it so that she can like be there if I need her. But eventually I just learned that she's not going to be there. She's not going to pick me up from school. I'll be there for hours. She's just not going to be there. And if she is, then she's irritable that I've learned to lean on myself. You know, she's mad that I'm not like cuddly or whatever. Like, she's, again, like the fun mom is then like angry at what the other her did that she will not acknowledge. So everything outside of this, like, what she has created, she's like, that doesn't make sense. You know, it's kind of like dissociative identity disorder or something is also what I compare it to, because it's like if you don't know of another alter or something, that's how she's treating it. Like, why are people treating me this way? I didn't do anything wrong, whatever.
Well, and she's in a different, like, she's in an altered state when, when all of
Right.
that's happening. So then, yeah, that makes a
Right,
lot
but
of
then to
sense.
not acknowledge how you got there, and then to treat everybody.
Right.
She's a
I
perpetual
see.
victim as well, which is an interesting dynamic when you're a child of a perpetual victim, because, like, what am I supposed to do with that? Well, because I was thinking about the question also of like, how did you know? And there were so many situations that I was put in that relied on me paying attention to how much she's had and noticing how she's functioning or not. Like, one of the things, again, that I write about is this time when I was like 6, I believe, and we're like driving home from her friend's house, and we lived in the rural Washington, like, so there's like trees and forest, and it's very dark outside because it's very late, and she had a lot to drink. And this is a stick shift. It's like a little Jetta that she like let me, you know, gear shift sometimes, or like she taught me. But I was like, are you sure you're good to drive? Because I'm watching her like fall asleep, and she's, you know, swerving, and she snapped at me, and she's like, well, do you want to drive? And I really considered it, because this was my reality. And I remember telling the story to a therapist that I had, and she's like, well, you didn't really think like that it was your responsibility. And I'm like, You must not understand, children of addicts, because I sure the fuck did think it was my... Can I cuss on here? Sorry. But I'm like, I sure did think it was my responsibility, because I literally weighed the options of, if I don't, what's going to happen? We are out in the middle of nowhere. She's not to be trusted because I frequently have to clean up her messes or take care of her. Like, I can't take her seriously. So if I don't, then who knows what's going to happen. If I do, am I going to crash? Am I going to kill the engine? Am I going to know how to restart it? Because it's a fucking stick shift, so it's not just like driving an automatic. Not that that'd be easy for a 6-year-old either, like, because nobody should. If you know a 6-year-old, this is a wild predicament for them to be in.
You were 6 at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, and truly thinking, should I? I chose not to because I was scared and I was frozen and panicked. And we came up to one of those, you can go left or you can go right signs. And she just went straight. And we crashed into a ditch. And I really had to think about if I should have drove. That was like my takeaway, that I should have drove. If I did this thing, I could have prevented this other thing. And then to talk about the secret keeping thing later, because we went home without a car. Mind you, this is the middle of the night, like I said. So I am taking care of her. We're upside down in the car at this point, and I'm like panicked and crying because I'm scared. I like look over at her. I'm asking if she's okay. I don't remember like what happened, this gap. Some guy picked us up in a truck, which like I have avoided death so many times because that's wild. You hear about serial killer? What an easy pick. You got a drunk lady and like her 6-year-old daughter. Don't know how here, but in the middle of the night, it is pitch black out. Also, like I was,
Washington.
Yes. So there's like coyotes, bears. Like this is like for real. Like I saw like, I don't know if they were cougars. Yeah, cougars. We used to have cougars outside of our house all the time. Anyways, so the next day, my grandma's on the phone. My mom's talking to her, and I'm like, oh yeah, mom crashed the car last night, and she snatched the phone from me, and she looked so mad. Why would you tell her that? And then, I don't know why I wouldn't share that. It's a factual thing that happened that impacted me, but then I got in trouble for sharing. So, it's an example of like, can't tell the truth about stuff, don't know what I shouldn't talk about. My mom's not talking to me about the fact that we're at home now without a car. We're not talking about the fact that like you being drunk led to us now not having a car. No one's processing with me what a crazy decision that is because she doesn't remember asking me. And I've already mentioned that anything I mention that makes her upset about her own behavior is off limits. So that means, like, another thing I'm robbed of, to go back to your question, is, like, there is no discussing the impact of any of this on me because it's not real. It never happened. So I'm just sitting with, like, which mom do I get today? Or for how long? Like, who is this? Who am I coming home to? Is it fun mom or is it drunk mom?
And there's no one to process any of that. No. The fear. You said you were afraid, like driving in the car and being faced with a very adult decision as a 6-year-old of should I drive this car because I don't think my mom can and we're not safe. And then like really having this accident, no one has this conversation with you after it occurs. No. And that's like, I don't know, it's another thing of like having family. People know when it's an addict like this because she's not functional. So they're aware of her antics. We've moved so many times, we've done these things, they've come to the house and all there is in the fridge is beer and they left me there. So you're also dealing with like abandonment of adults in your life who know that things are wrong and they leave you. And no family member intervene either.
So what would happen is my mom would, for whatever reason, I mean, I'm thinking of like what I understand of addicts, impulsivity, whatever. She would like leave me and my brother with different family members. But then as soon as I don't know why she would come back. I think that it's because like there's some sense of, like, she would show me off a lot. Isn't she cute? Sing for them. Avery, dance for them. Avery, do these things. That I think that there's, like, a part of her that liked to show me off. And so she would come back eventually. And I guess, like, the times that people were like, the kids are going to stay with us, she's like, I'm going to call the cops on you for kidnapping. And then they'd just give us back. So, I don't want to say just, like, possibly that threat would be pretty tough to deal with, you know, systemically and thinking about police. Not that these people were black, so they don't have to think about that aspect. But, yeah, I don't know. That was
But endangering a child, I'm sure that, like, the system involvement is something that it sounds like the community around your mom and the community around you was trying to avoid your getting involved with either the foster system or, right? Like, because with
I don't know. Maybe that's. I don't know. Because then the aunt that my mom threatened at some point, she became a foster mom later on. So I don't know if, you know, the system involvement in that way was a deterrent. I'm really not sure. But there was some fear of, like, this woman's gonna call the cops if we try to protect these kids, and I don't know what's gonna happen there. Also, my family's extremely poor, so there's possibly a... Sorry, I had, it's not funny. I had another memory when I said, like, police and we're poor or whatever, or my mom was driving us to school or something, and she got pulled over and arrested for drinking and driving by the bus for some reason. So all these kids on the bus saw this happen. I'm just remembering this now. That's another thing that happens when you have, like, there's so many memories and things that they just come up and you're like, right, forgot about that for a moment.
That all these kids witnessed this happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
the shameful thing.
Shame. So I imagine just everything you've talked about, abandonment, shame, lack of intervention from adults in your life, whether it was family members. I imagine also if teachers were around as well, no one's sort of like speaking on your behalf while you're telling the truth. How did that come up in grief, like, later on as you were, like, recognizing, maybe coming out of childhood and, like, growing up into adolescence, or realizing more even in your early 20s, like, all this stuff has happened and this is wild that it happened. And yeah, when did grief really start being present for you?
Probably, like, high school wise. But it's like, you don't know that it's grief until you, like, have room to understand that it's grief. Because, you know, you're stuck in survival, and school was my outlet, like, because, I don't know, I was just good at it and I liked it. So, like, I just focused on that. But, right, so I was like, my attachment style being disorganized because, you know, sometimes fun mom, sometimes not mom. I don't know who I'm going to get. I'm oscillating all the time between anxious and avoidance. Avoiding someone who's chaotic and scary, anxious that I'm going to have to see her again soon and that I don't know what I'm walking into. So it was, like, more depressive. It was just, like, sad. I didn't know how to make friends or keep friends, but also, like, I've moved around so much that I don't take it seriously, or nothing feels like it's permanent anyways. So, and then also being autistic, I'm just, like, masking and trying to figure out who to be, because I'm like, okay, so this is how you make friends. These are, like, cool girls. I guess I should kind of be mean, and that's what I should do to... I don't know. It was very confusing, but
Figuring out how to fit in.
Yeah, but then this all came to a head because my brother, who had kids at the time, this was, like, right after I graduated, so I must have been, like, going to college. I was back home visiting. I found out that he was going to invite this cousin that molested me to watch his kids. to take care of his kids. And my brother was also like witness to this. He had engaged in things as well. And I was talking to his wife, and I was like, I don't think that you should. And I just said it in a factual way because, I wasn't thinking there's any emotional. It was just a thing that happened to me. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that you should have him come watch the kids because of this thing that happened to me. And then she starts like sobbing. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. But then I started having like panic attacks after that. And I didn't really think of it like I did, but then things get buried, So
There was a lot of that, burying and not telling the truth, and yeah.
Right. So in terms of like the grief, I think that that's maybe the first. I don't know. You're grieving all the time. It's like an everyday's grief. Like my mom's not awake. That's me grieving as a child. I needed something, or I'm like at school and she doesn't show up or whatever. I'm grieving the fact that like I'm trapped. So there's like too many feelings to like try to separate what's grief and what's not.
Yeah.
But it's like a persistent sadness and disappointment, and yeah, like to have a date on it of like when I'm 18 or something, then I will be free. Then I can whatever. Then I can take care of me. I moved in with my aunt, and she was like a different type of abusive because my mom, what did she say? She said she was tired of my something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember the last interaction we had was eventually, like as a kid in this environment, you start to get angry at the neglect, and I was angry, and so I think she asked me to get her a beer or something out of the fridge. And she was already really drunk, and I started to get really angry to see her drunk because you're making yourself helpless. She's like making herself a helpless person. So I think like I snatched the beer, and then she got mad that I threw her beer or something. And then it escalated to physical stuff. I didn't want to be there. So she called my aunt, who my brother already lived with, and said, she made it seem like I was being a dramatic teenager, something like that. That's what I remember.
I'm wondering, actually, even as you're sharing, like, how it is to be sharing about it right now, like, in presently. Because I know it recalls a lot of, hurt pieces from before. And so, yeah, I'm wondering right now, what's it like to be even sharing about this presently with me?
Partially uncomfortable because this is like my experience with it, and I hope that I'm saying enough of what's right, but also being cognizant that this is also like other people's stories, like this is also my brother's story, that cousin, like my brother's wife. These are like, this involves other people, so I'm also aware of like kind of uncomfortable about, or just considering how much I share the same autistic thing of how much is too much, and is this right, or is this right?
Yeah. I want to encourage you to share what, like, I know that some of it might feel uncomfortable to share, but I actually want to bring you back into a place of like groundedness sharing from a grounded, like, place even of comfort, so that it doesn't feel like you are falling too deep into the discomfort that it feels like, how did I get here? And I'm like going down, when you go and you turn down a road and you're like, I feel like I just went into a dead end, and I don't know how I got into this neighborhood, but now I'm in this neighborhood where there's multiple cul-de-sacs or multiple dead ends. And so I want to like just help move you back into like the main road of the grief piece, but also like, even healing, if we can start to talk about healing. And I encourage you to share your perspective and your story around knowing that all of this happened, knowing that there was so much hurt, and there were so many, it's like a tangled web of family dynamics and your family system, and you were pretty lost in it. Was there anybody or was there any moment? Clearly, you're here now, right? So, like, I'm wondering what were some initial steps even to healing, or what were some identities or people that showed up who you were like, ha, okay, like, this actually, like, I can trust this, right? Because you mentioned attachment related stuff, and then, like, I can trust this. I can trust this person, or I can trust this environment or this space. And maybe that's a hard word because I don't know if you feel like you can fully trust after all of these experiences, but you know, like I said, you're here now. And so I'm wondering either what identities or what people influenced how you heal.
Yeah, I feel like I get to do a lot of corrective stuff as a mom, you know? Like, something I was talking about with my therapist is that, like, my son doesn't know what beer is. If I asked him to grab me a beer, he wouldn't know what that means, and he'll be 7 soon. Like, I show up to all his events. I'm not late to pick him up. I advocate for him. So as a mother, I get to really, like, define what that is, because it hasn't been defined for me.
Yeah.
And as an autistic person, like, the main way I lean into healing is unmasking and being myself and being honest, which is great, and neurotypical society functions a lot like what I grew up in. So it's a lot of, like, you hint at things, you don't say things directly, there's a right way to say things, you should never be too forward about what you want. It really is the, like, antithesis of what we teach as therapists.
Yeah, there are a lot of, it sounds like a lot of rules.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But that's, like, what society, it's like how society functions. So, yeah, healing means, like, being honest and always being honest. And also, as a therapist, one of the reasons I didn't know I was autistic for a long time is because my echo chamber of, like, people I had around me and this job, I am deep all the time in this job. And there's no reprimand for that because it's expected. And I, like, love it. I, like, thrive in depth and honesty because I was robbed of it forever, and because it's, like, you know, one of the values that's, like, to my core necessary. So being an autistic therapist is, like, healing all the time. And it's also, like, inspiring because people change. And I don't know if you have this experience, but, like, as a therapist, the things you see, again, because it's an echo chamber, it starts to, like, this is what we think reality is. It's like people want to talk about stuff, and they want to take accountability, and they want to be honest, and they want to share their feelings, and they're like, but then you go out in the world, and it's not that. People are, like, quick to anger, and they are, like, they, like, thrive on shame. They want to make people feel, like, bad. So my echo chambers are great, and they, like, create hope for me because I see it all the time. Like, I know that healthy relationships are possible because I help curate them in like, the space that I've created to be safe. I show clients all the time that they can be honest and that they're not going to get in trouble for it. I get to have corrective experiences really regularly, actually, and, like, even reparenting clients and creating safety that they've never had, that I know they've never had, that I didn't grow up with. Are there other identities? Oh, as a writer, I get to say how I want to say things specifically, and I get to, like, process, and I get to externalize things, and I get to help other people who feel like they are alone in their badness or in their, like, there's just a lot of shame growing up in systems like this and families like this because, you know, you're just that friend who has that family with that mom. You have that mom, and people know that. So just normalizing how it feels to grow up in that, and normalizing that you can decide for yourself, which I told you I have a piece around.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing just so much. You have so much empathy for people probably who have experienced this if you're creating the spaces for it. But also there was a lot of like creating spaces, or you were able to create, what I'm really hearing is like containers, like everywhere. You're like creating these healthy containers, and how powerful it is for you to create these containers or spaces where corrective experiences could happen, where you're able to experience something different. And perhaps it's like many of your identities or even your experience that's led you to create something different than what you experienced, right? And the corrective experience of being like a mom and being like, you know what, I'm not going to do it like that. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to create something that like my child doesn't have to experience the thing that I experienced when I was a child. Also, like, because it feels so bad sometimes out in the world and people can't manage their anger well or contain it, or they can have anger, like that's a real emotion. And also like what you're talking about is like anger that actually hurts people.
Yeah, like why are you yelling at me? But again, real common. People love to scold. Like scolding feels real common. As an autistic person, I experience it regularly. And again, I just practice acceptance where I told my clients who are also autistic, like, a part of unmasking is accepting that people aren't curious. They're not... People jump to... Like, projections happen, always, of, like, she's doing this because this. Like, because I'm light-skinned, I think that I'm better than XYZ, or I must think XYZ, or I'm doing these things because, I don't know, whatever projection comes with that, I'm entitled, and blah, 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 whatever the thing, not because I don't know that that's not what I shouldn't do, and not because it doesn't make sense that it happens that way, and so I do the thing that makes sense in my brain. So yeah, the scolding
I have a lot of curiosity about that. Like, I'm curious to know, like, because you didn't have these models of like being able to create a healthy container or healthy space or healthy interaction, or that's not how you would treat your child, or even have like the reaction of people who are witnessing this experience that you're having, right? And people not intervening in different ways. How did you even know to create healthy containers? Like, what was there other stuff later on that was either modeled for you, or like, I hear you saying like, I was curious about it and then I just did it differently. Like, I wasn't sure if it was like books you read or things you saw on TV or just
another story, because I'm doing stories, I guess, but there's value in stories. I have been like doing this and caring about people and checking in on people again since I was like 6 or 7. In my classroom, I asked my teacher if I could create this questionnaire for other students to fill out. So I literally made a packet. How are you? Do you feel like you have friends? Do you need someone to talk to? How are you feeling? Whatever. But it was like a packet of things. And she really did let me print it off. Like, Mrs. C, that was her name. Mrs. Chalowinski. Shout out to her. Well, I think that was her. She was great for other reasons if it wasn't this teacher, so sorry to the teacher who actually let me print it off. But yes, this teacher like let me print it off, and students filled it out, and I like was talking to kids. So I truly think that my model was what not to be. I cannot think of one single person who was in my life where I thought, I want to be like them. I just thought, here's what I'm missing, and I will be that since I was a kid. And I'm sure that sounds unbelievable, but I think I just had a really strong intuition for forever of this is what feels good and this is what feels nice and this is how people should show up for people and this is how I want to show up for people. And again, it's very disheartening because that's not really how people are. We're in an individualistic society. I find that I have more like collectivist ideals of what community should look like and how we should show up for each other and the questions we should be asking. So it's disappointing to know that that's not the reality, and I just show up and ask for what I want and see if people agree with that sort of ideal, and then we do it, and then that, I don't know, that's how. So I did not have people or models or like, I just create the containers because I'm like, this is what love feels like to me, and does it feel like this to you? I'm a very collaborative person. You come to my groups, my women of color therapy things, and I would hope that the tone that everybody understands in there is that like you are honest and you talk about real stuff and you talk about the self of the therapist, you talk about, but you show up for real. Like none of the masking, like, well, I better not take up space, like, I'm sure you've even heard me say that, like, you don't apologize for taking up space here, stuff like that. So I try to do what feels good and right, and I try to I'm the inviter. I invite other people to do the same, and I hope that they choose it. And then even with like a lifetime of rejections or like denial, it's still what is right for me, so I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot like your experiences were both the cause of a lot of grief and also perhaps a platform for like doing something completely like opposite of that so that you could create the healing space that actually felt good for you. And you could, if you weren't able to build like a lot of trust in other people, then you were able to build it within yourself and trust your intuition and trust like, well, this is the type of space that feels like it could be like caring and loving, and these are also like these are values really that were sort of, you were growing even while experiencing maybe not that.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's not like I didn't get straight to this from childhood. There was a lot of trying to figure out how to be a whole person and stand on my own. You know, there were, of course, like growing pains of unhealthy relationships and unhealthy friendships and like real insecure and fear of, I actually want to say that because I wouldn't want people to be like, well, somehow Avery just I had a lot of mean people in my life, and I was like, I don't know, like, I'll take the love I sometimes get.
So it was like a sorting process almost, like you're like, that's not what I want, but I will take this piece of what I like, or that's also not what I want, but this feels like it's good and healthy, or this feels like it fits me as far as love or care.
Yes, that is true, because I was thinking about how, I've had really bad experiences that then helped me create boundaries. Like, another thing with being autistic is like I said earlier, so I guess it's not another thing, but having to trust in what people are saying because we do it the wrong way. So leaning on the wrong person or not knowing what social norms mean, and so, leading to like assaults and things because I didn't know that if I went with you, that means that I'm consenting. That's not what that means, right? We know that that's not what that means, but people will be like, well, why did you go with him? Because everyone knows blah, blah, blah. So it's like having to learn through bad experiences and through really cruel or, I don't know, like mean people, takers, being like, oh, yeah, I have to protect myself. Like, I have to learn how to set boundaries because if I don't, then this thing will happen. Or what the first book I wrote touches on is like, getting involved with people that you know are harmful, as a way of like self-harm, but also like the addictive sort of up and down thing where, you know, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not, just like your parent. But then being like, oh, this is really bad. Like, I don't want to play this game anymore. I don't want to be with people that are mean and that'll make me feel bad because that was like really detrimental. So it's like you have like one bad experience that then teaches you to do better or choose better for yourself because, yeah, it's like really harmful. So yes, I just wanted to say that I didn't just, you know, I'm not just like, oh, I like somehow turn to like sunshine and I am like this brave person who unmasks all the time. It's because I know that this is better than anything else I could be doing. Like, I know where the other routes lead, the other paths, and this path leads me directly to at least a possibility of like reciprocal care and love and community. I know where those take me. I know how I feel at the end. So even while this is unpredictable and vulnerable, I know that I have myself and my values, and I know that it can lead me to like loving environments and people that like reflect what I find important now or always have.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom in that. There's a lot of wisdom in that, like, sorting process. And I'm just wondering, I'm wondering from your wisdoms a couple things, but I'm wondering kind of if there's anything like ritualistic or ways you've learned to like, maybe either ritually or regularly, routinely process maybe, okay, this wasn't anybody who's going through like a time maybe that you are experiencing, right? Like, how do they, is there something that they might think about in terms of like honoring that grief that they've experienced or some of those hard times, and also just like leaning in towards like what are the steps towards healing, like even like that sorting process kind of that you were mentioning of like, all right, looks like I need to, you were sort of accumulating a list of boundaries essentially that are like, because of rules, right? And thinking about rules a lot maybe as part of neurodivergence as well, like were there boundaries that were helpful or so I'm curious about if there are any sort of like rituals or processes that were helpful to you in recognizing, honoring your grief while also creating steps towards feeling like you were healing.
Yeah, I guess changing my mindset around like roles. So growing up, like I said, my mom being a perpetual victim or turning people into bad guys, whatever. Really dismantling that and saying like there are no roles. No one is a bad guy and no one is a good guy. I'm not a victim, etc. really helps because then you can create empathy and hold multiple realities at the same time. So this person did this thing because of their experience. I understand that their childhood led them to do these things and they are not very good to me. That's a reality. I don't need to make meaning of that. I don't need to say that must mean that I am blah 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 blah. That it doesn't mean that is just real right there. What also is real is that I don't want to tolerate that and it doesn't feel good to me, therefore I can't have it in my life. So it is just being honest with yourself. So dismantling that, identifying what your values are, and then the really hard one that a lot of people don't want to do, but it's being honest about this person's participation or ability or desire to show up in ways that you actually need. So you have to identify what you need. You have to be honest if this person is doing that or not. You have to be honest with them if they aren't doing it. I am describing boundaries, and then it's like actually doing that. It's actually saying like, oh, you're not very good to me, and I've expressed to you that you're not very good to me. I've been patient, I've been kind, I've offered different solutions, and you are pretty set in the patterns that you have. again, I'm not making meaning of this. I did not say you're a bad person. I did not say whatever. I said where you're at in your life, you are choosing these things. This is the way that your brain works. These are the patterns that you have. And that's not conducive to love or like what feels good to me. So it is being honest, and it is choosing yourself and your values over attachments. So yeah, regularly examining things. How did that feel? Was I honest with them about how that felt? If not, then that's on me. If they don't know what they're doing and I'm swallowing it, I'm keeping it to myself, that's not fair to them. But how are they responding when I do tell them? Got it. They don't want to change. They're telling me they don't want to change. So I need to choose myself, and I need to go seek community elsewhere. And this is about grief, so how does that apply to grief is that you can still be sad and grieve the fact that someone can't meet you where you are, and you can still choose yourself. So grief might always be there to some capacity, and you will be better for choosing healthy dynamics, because I guess you could either grieve and like dig in, like it feels like being in a crevice of low self-worth. You could either like sit in that and it's like rancid and festering, and you can be in that and never speak up for yourself, or also be sad. This is my reality. They don't love me, but I'm gonna stay here because. Or you can like choose health and healing and be like, it's real sad that they can't meet me where I'm at or where I need them to be, but I know that I deserve these things, and so I'm gonna be healthy and good. I'm gonna be a little sad, but because the reality is I can't have a relationship with this person, and it is really sad. I've had friendships like that where I'm like, man, you are such a good person and you're so fun. We have so much fun and we can be like neurodivergent together. But boy, are you really mean. You are really mean. And I need you to check that because I don't want people being mean to me. Oh, you feel like you have to be mean because of how you grew up and because your boundaries weren't respected. Okay, well, if you can't stop being mean, then I can't have you in my life. I'm sad because we had a lot of fun and it doesn't work, and that's reality, and that's where the grief is. The grief is in truth.
Wow. Yeah. There's Avery, there's so much like wisdom in what you're sharing, and just from your experiences clearly, but also just I really hear that there's a lot of trusting what it is that feels like it aligns or it feels good. And I don't know if everybody knows what that means for them in terms of like maybe they have confusion about like I don't actually know what feels good to me. Or and so it sounds like part of that process for you was having some of those experiences that were like, this was not a good experience, and then I learned that like this is not what I want anymore, or like and naming what it is that you do want. And coming back to that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, being honest. Because like I said, the grief is in the truth, and people don't want to grieve. They don't want to feel sad because feelings are difficult. The other thing that I did is I stopped making other people the measurement of how I should be. Again, real hard for autistic people. I understand that. I recognize that. And I raised my bar, meaning like, instead of being like, I should be like XYZ to fit in with these things, I started thinking, I don't communicate that way, and I actually prefer for someone to be honest about their feelings and to share. I don't want to do guesswork, so I actually like the way that I communicate. I like that I'm clear, I like that I'm direct, I like that I am kind, which is not to be confused with nice. Like, I'll tell you that I didn't like something, and I don't need to sugarcoat it, but I would prefer that people tell me things like that as well. So instead of beating myself up for like the way my brain works or what I'm not able to do or not willing to or whatever, I stopped thinking that was a bad thing and was just honest, like, I actually need people around that can emotionally regulate. I need people around that are vulnerable. I need people around that can feel and that can say that hurt my feelings, or I didn't like that, or I'm confused, or I'm whatever. And like you said, yes, some people may not be able to do that. And the reality is that, like, unless someone's open to trying it, then they're not in my life. Because I'm not expecting perfection, but I am expecting effort, and I am expecting self-assessment, like,
awareness.
Yourself. You know what I mean?
Awareness,
like,
assessment.
Even if you're not aware, like, because we don't always know, right? That's the human experience. Sometimes something happens and we have a reaction and we're like, why did I have that reaction? I at least need the person that says, why did I have that reaction? And for them to be like, let me think. Oh, because blah, blah, blah. Like, but I need people who will talk about it and who will be curious about it. And that's my standard that I've set. So, even if you don't know what feels good, everybody can identify, or maybe as you're listening, you can identify that what feels good is someone showing up to meet you where you're at, and someone being open to hear truth, reality. That's another thing from my book. Love is, will you sit in truth with me? That's one of my lines. And that is love. Like, let's talk about this thing. What did you think? What was your experience? How was that for you? Okay, here's how it was for me. And no one's mean or hurting the other person because of what they, like, perceived. You are curious because you care about them. So I've just identified that I need, like, curious and caring people, and that's the truth. Like, that feels very, like, clear in my body. I can tell there's no tensing or anything, so I know that that's right. But what isn't right is if I try to fit into these things that don't make sense to me, and I try to tiptoe, and I'm thinking, oh, if I say it this way, like, who knows that there's probably not the right way to say it. Or I just don't care anymore, because a decent person to me would be like, hey, I don't really like that you said it that way. And I'd say, thanks for telling me. Here's what this meant to me. But now I know that you don't like that, so I won't do that. It's just, like, humanity, living is a lot easier than people make it be. It feels pretty clear cut.
Yeah. Something you said about truth, it's, truth is, sometimes people find difficulty in figuring out, like, well, this is my truth. That's your truth. So then how do you get to, like, a absolute or, like, an in-between, like, what's the truth, kind of? Yeah.
Is that a real question?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah. I would say that it's not about trying to find the absolute, because what's the saying? Like, there's your truth, there's their truth, and then there's the truth, or something like that. I don't think that the point is to find the actual truth, which can be, again, really hard for autistic people to hear, because we're like, there's an answer. But it's just about, like, respecting people's feelings and making sense of, like, how do you feel loved? Here's how I feel loved. And yeah, because when you start getting into, like, the details and, like, that's not what happened, then you're not really talking about the purpose, which is, here's how I felt about what happened, and here's how I interpreted what happened. So I know this can get really tricky as you, like, think of different traumas or personality disorders or something that might really misinterpret an event. And I know that's hard for those folks as well, because in their bodies it says this is real, and they did something and they're trying to hurt me. But that's, I guess possibly a different conversation.
Hey y'all, Editor Dana here. Thanks so much for listening to the first part of this episode. It was a longer episode, so we decided to split it into 2 parts. And so thanks for listening to the first part, and stay tuned for the second part. Thanks for listening to this episode of Untethered to Rooted. Untethered to Rooted is produced and hosted by me, Dana Daugherty. Original music was composed and performed by the ever-talented Daniel Dickinson. Thanks so much to our guests for sharing with us today. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. And follow us on social at Untethered to Rooted. And if you didn't like it, what podcast? Dana who? Until next time, take and give good care.